right, we're going to go on and get started today. Welcome to the new lead coordinator training for 2015-2016. I will be recording today's session so we can post it up on YouTube so that if you ever have anybody else in your district that needs to go back and look at it and listen to it, they will be able to access that. The lead coordinator training today, I think I have us scheduled for about 2 hours. It will probably only take us about an hour and a half. I have been doing lead for about 10 years now for the Standards Board. My name is Cindy Godsey, for those of you that don't know me. So please, if I talk too fast, if I gloss over something that you need me to go back to, please use the chat option to feel free to ask any questions. Tell me to slow down, go over anything that you need to see again. We're going to go on and get started. You should have received from me this morning 3 documents by email. One is the PowerPoint that we will be using. One is a sample lead report that we will refer to periodically during today's training. And then the final document is called the Lead Quick Reference Steps. And that is a tool that we'll talk about, but that's something that you want to keep handy as you do the lead process at all times. So today's presentation is going to cover a variety of things. I will warn you, if you are brand new to lead and you have never ever done it, a lot of this will sound a little confusing, because until you really can get into lead and start doing the process, a lot of it will not make sense. But once you get in there, I promise it is not as hard as it may sound by the end of the training today. So we're going to talk about what lead is, why we do it. We're going to take a look at the EPSB Lead web application, and I'll walk you through that whole application on our system. We'll do an overview of the lead and the lead steps. And then we'll look at how to read the lead reports and how to use the lead report to resolve your lead issues. And finally, we will wrap up with the lead timeline. I'll give you the important opening and closing dates, as well as some pacing recommendations to help keep you on track as you go through the lead process. Again, if you have any questions at any time, you should have an option at the bottom of your screen that says chat. You can either send me a direct message or you can send it just to everybody that's on the call today. LEAD actually stands for Local Educator Assignment Data and is authorized in both statute and in regulation. The statute gives us the fall lead reporting period in that it mandates that EPSB give the Commissioner of Education a report showing out of field or out of certification teachers no later than November 15th. We wrap up the lead reporting process by November 1st so that we here at EPSB can pull a final report together by the 15th. The regulation fleshes out a little bit of the information about lead. It also gives us the spring reporting period, which is what we use for federal reporting. The purpose for doing the lead report is to ensure that there's a properly certified educator in every position. Now, you'll notice that I did not just say teacher here, because we also check administrator certifications through the Munis file. Your finance officers upload the PSD and CSD files out of Munis up to KDE, and KDE sends us some of that data so that we can check the certifications of administrators. We also look at all of the course information out of Infinite Campus and compare that course information to the database that we have here with teacher certifications. Ramifications for assignments that are not in compliance can be loss of SEEK funds. I'll be honest that I've not seen that done in several years, although we will have a new commissioner, or at least be under the interim commissioner by the time this report is submitted. And so that is always on the table. The other thing that can happen is legal action from our board against administrator or teacher certifications. If someone is out of compliance on the lead report, there's a chance that it's a violation of the statute that says you have to have a credential for entering into a teaching position and for that appropriate position. So our board can choose to take legal action if they choose to do so. We also use LEAD data for a variety of other items, including highly qualified teacher reporting. There's other state and federal reports as needed. We pull data out of LEAD for those. It is used for a lot of data research by our staff here at the EPSB, by the Kentucky Department of Ed, and by the Legislative Research Commission. You know, every once in a while the legislatures will say, how many teachers are there teaching Algebra 1 this year? We go to the LEAD data to find that information. LEAD is used for open records requests frequently. In this day and age, as teachers are missing out on job positions for whatever reason, as we've kind of tightened down our teaching force into a slightly smaller teaching force, people are asking questions and they're asking, well, I want to see the LEAD report to make sure this person has the right certification for what they're doing. The course data that we use for LEAD is the same course data that is also used for PGES and the median student growth percentile ratings. So all of this information comes together, and you can see why it is so important that we have good data quality in all of these reports. Some tips and tricks as you start into your first few LEAD processes. The first thing you need to know is that the LEAD process should be a team approach. Now, you'll notice that throughout today's presentation, I often refer to this as the LEAD process and not just the LEAD report. And the reason for that is that LEAD is not just a push the button once report and it goes on into the system and is done. LEAD is a process that you have to go through where you run it several times. There's a lot of cleanup involved. So it's not just a one-time report. And because of the way LEAD is done, you really need to have a whole team of people involved. That includes your HR staff, your curriculum specialists, special ed coordinators and directors, guidance counselors, finance officers, and you can provide training to them. We provide training for the district level staff, and then we ask that districts pass that training along to whoever needs it at the district level at whatever level they need it. They're not going to need the same level of training that you will as a district coordinator. But you can train your counselors, your principals, the curriculum specialists, attendance staff if they're the folks putting things in Infinite Campus. Train them as you need to. This PowerPoint document, the LEAD manual that I'll be publishing later this week, all of that materials will be on our website, available for you to download or for anyone to download as needed. You want to make sure that you create a consistent method of communication during the LEAD reporting period so that you can pass information quickly and easily back and forth between the school and the district level. If you have your schools do a lot of the correcting for you, make sure you have a LEAD point of contact there that you have trained how to make these corrections. So make sure that communication lines are really wide open. We strongly recommend that you upload your report very early and as frequently as you need to. The earlier you upload, the earlier you can catch some of those true certification issues that may require a staffing change. We hate that has to happen, but occasionally somebody's been either placed in a wrong position or they've allowed their certificate to lapse and aren't going to be able to get it back. And so staffing changes do sometimes need to happen. And the LEAD report can help you identify those, only if you upload it early. And when I say as frequently as needed, LEAD is a real-time process where you can pull a file out of Infinite Campus and upload it to our site at any time. There will be folks that upload over 100 times during the next 2 months, and that is perfectly acceptable. So just be aware that you can do that as often as you need to. As paperwork processes here at the standards board, things will drop off of your report automatically. So let's say you have a teacher that was waiting for a piece of paper to come in for their renewal. That process is here. The next day you run your report, they've cleared off the report. When you upload your report to our site, it allows you to view any certification or coding errors on the preliminary audit report. It also allows me to see the exact same report so that we can help you answer any questions. So if you call up here and ask me a question, I'm going to pull up the same report that you're looking at. Be aware that your report is not considered officially submitted until you hit the submit and sign off button. Uploading the report and looking at the report is not submitted. And I have people that kind of panic every year because they upload their report and it's a mess the first few times, which is to be expected when you're still doing cleanup. But they're like, oh no, I don't want EPSB to see this mess. Well, it's perfectly fine as long as you don't hit finalize and submit that as your final report. I will tell you, do not wait to hear from me after you upload. We do not notify everybody of what their errors are as the upload process is going. You get a report that shows you your errors as soon as you download or as soon as you upload. And I don't go through and open every report every time it comes in. I basically monitor statistics here just to kind of see how folks are doing. Now, if I see something that's a little strange, I might email you, or if something isn't working right on your file. But under normal circumstances, I'm not going to email you after you've uploaded and say, here's a list of your errors. Every year I have at least 1 or 2 people that upload, and 2 days later they email me and say, hey, how's my report look? And my response is always, I don't know. How's your report look? Because I haven't looked at it in the depth that you all as lead coordinators should be. I only do that as needed, as you all need me to help you, and then we do a thorough review at the end of the reporting period once you've signed off. So don't wait to hear from me after an upload. You're going to have all the tools that you need at hand to be able to see that. There's some things that are related to LEAD that you do need to be aware of. The first is Integrated Science 2, 3, and 4 courses. If your high school is offering Integrated Science 2, 3, or 4, the teacher approval for that has to be done on a case-by-case basis, and have a form that your school can submit to ask for that approval. So email EPSB lead team at ky.gov to request that form. KESE is an application in our website that you will want to become very familiar with. It is Kentucky Educator Certification Inquiry, and this is where you can go to look up someone's credentials, to check on their application status, and to see their permissions. There's some other functions you can do there as well, and I'll let you kind of explore those at a later date. But please make sure that principals are aware that they have access to KESE to look up permissions. Every year we get principals that say, oh, I didn't know they couldn't teach that. And that's because they haven't used the tools at their disposal. If you have any questions about KESE, please let us know. Munis is something, as I've already mentioned, that is related to LEAD in that we get the summary job class code information out of the PSD and CSD files. If there is an error related to a job class code, your finance officer will need to resubmit the PSD and CSD files. I will send out information as we get closer to Munis coming in about who to contact and how to do that. We usually don't get the Munis data until right around the beginning of October. We're now going to take a look at the actual LEAD web application that is in our database. If you do not yet have access to the LEAD application, I will be going through in the next couple of days and working on updates to the lead coordinator list and making sure that everybody's got the access that they need. So just let me know by the middle of next week if you don't see access to that in our system. To get to that system, you can log in from our home page and then select LEAD from your online services menu, or you can use this direct web link here. Either one is fine. You will log in using your user ID and password. If for some reason you've never had a user ID and password in our system, you will need to go in and create that yourself. When you go to the login from our homepage, there's an option that says new user, create account here, and you can create your own user ID and password there. If you have any problems with your user ID and password, feel free to contact me or contact our help desk because they can help you reset that password as well. This is what the LEAD homepage looks like. You'll notice a variety of buttons across the top bar and then a bulleted list down in the page. They have the same links. It's just whichever you feel more comfortable using to access and move around the page. Taking a look at each of the buttons across the top, the first is Keysi, and so there's a link directly to Keysi so that you can pop over and check on somebody's certificate if you need to. In Keysi, you will have a link that sends you back to LEAD, so it'll bounce you back and forth as needed. The intro just returns you back to that main page we looked at just a moment ago. Upload files is the page where you upload a file once it comes out of Infinite Campus. You do need to be aware that our system and Infinite Campus do not talk. So this is a manual process where you manually extract the file out of Infinite Campus and then zip it and then manually upload it into our site. At no point will our system talk directly to theirs. Edit Lead Data button is the online lead editor. This is where you're going to go to make some final corrections once you've made as much of your corrections in Infinite Campus as possible. We'll take an in-depth look at this as we get into the actual lead steps, when you would use it and why you would use it, and then how to use it. The reports page has your preliminary audit report, your full data report for both district and specific schools, and then it also has an option where you can email those reports to building level principals. And finally, the sign off and submit final lead data button. This is where you will go to digitally sign off and submit the report no later than November 1st. And as I said, we'll talk through that timeline as we wrap up today. The steps are all on the quick reference sheet that I sent you this morning. This is a document that I strongly recommend you keep by your computer as you're working on the lead process, because it's going to walk you through everything you need to know about the actual steps to process something. There are 5 basic steps to the lead process. We'll overview them here and then we'll get in depth into each one of them next. The first step is all done in Infinite Campus, and that is creating the lead extract file. Step 2 is going to be uploading it to our website. Step 3 is opening and reviewing your report, finding out what your errors are. And then step 4 is going back and making those corrections. You will repeat steps 1 through 4 multiple times. As I said earlier, there will be people that upload over 100 times in the next 2 months. So it's a process. There's a reason we don't just call it a report, that it's the lead process. So you're going to repeat those steps multiple times, and then finally you've got it as clean as you can, and you're ready to submit the report, which is step 5. So taking a closer look at step 1, which happens all in Infinite Campus. To get to the lead extract, you're going to go to Kentucky State Reporting and then lead extract. There are a variety of options on this page, and you need to make several specific selections. The first is the date range. Infinite Campus will allow you to run an export with one of these date ranges blank, but for lead purposes, you do need to enter something in both fields of the date range. In the fall reporting period, you're going to enter the first day of school to the last day of scheduled school for December. Now, if your district is on trimesters, that may cause a few little hiccups. Let me know and I can work with you to see if we need to run it just for the first trimester. The reason that is okay is because in the spring we'll pick it up, because the spring we run the full year. So spring report should run from the start of school to the last day of school. So make sure that you enter something in both of those date fields every time you run this. The reporting period, you're going to select either fall or spring. The format for uploading to our site has to be XML. So that's why it says state format. That's the format that we use to load it into our system. Infinite Campus gives you the option of running it in CSV or HTML. They say that is for cleanup purposes. Well, for some reports, that's fine. For this report, it gives you a lot of raw data that's really not going to make a lot of sense to you. So unless you know specifically something that you need to look out for the CSV or HTML format, my advice is just go on with the XML and get it uploaded to us. Then you have to select your calendars in Infinite Campus for the extract file. The calendars basically are the school. And so You'll want to either use Control-Click or Shift-Click to select more than one calendar. For the final lead extract, you have to include all of your schools. As you're working through the lead process, if you want to work on a smaller batch of schools or just a single school at a time, that's fine. Please be aware that when you upload, let's say you upload all your middle schools and you work on them, and then you're going to go back and work on your elementaries and you upload just your elementary schools, the middle school file will no longer exist because it overwrites everything as it comes in. So it's not a matter where it appends together. So make sure that you include all of your schools in the final lead extract. And I'll give you a couple of places where you can tell real quick that you've not uploaded something if something's gotten missed here in a moment. So when you generate the extract, most likely in Infinite Campus, you are going to get an extract summary error report. These are data errors of things that will not be included in your extract file. These are not the lead errors. They're just data errors. They are things that do need to be cleaned up, but you don't want to spend so much time on them that you've not uploaded to our site. So it's kind of a side-by-side process where you keep working on your extract errors, but go on and upload to our site so you can work on your other errors as well. You do want to make sure that you try and have all of the errors cleaned up before the final upload. Quick overview of each of the extract summary errors. There are 6 of them. You do need to know that I've got each of these listed along with how to correct them and things in the lead manual. So I'm just going to hit a few highlights over the next few slides, and then you can take a closer look at those in the lead manual once I get it posted. The first error is records that do not have a social security number, employee type, or both. Everyone should have a social security number in Infinite Campus, especially if they are certified staff or are tied to courses in any way, shape, or form. So they do have to have a social. Make sure it's on the demographics tab. Occasionally you'll have to resave that. Infinite Campus gets a little weird on that sometimes. The employee type is also required for anybody that is attached to courses. Sometimes we will see this error if somebody has more than one district assignment. And so they have a SITS role and another role, and you want to make sure that all of those have an employee type. The next warning is that the following staff have duplicate socials and gives you the number of records. This can happen if somebody gets married and instead of just changing the name on the identities tab, the person entering them puts in a whole new census record. It can also happen if you use the same dummy SSN for some of your classified staff. So just make sure everybody's got a distinct social. Employee type 01 staff that are not assigned to a course section. 01 staff are teachers. So you want to make sure that everybody that is a teacher has either their own course or is assigned as an additional teacher. You don't want to change the employee type to fix this error. You know, people that are collaborating special ed teachers, people that are art, music, or PE teachers should all be listed as teacher. They should not be listed as support or other. So make sure that you've checked that carefully. Now, people that are curriculum coaches, folks like that work with just teachers should not have the employee type of 01 so that they won't show up with this error. The core ID and alt-CNUM are both blank. This simply means that the school has not followed KDE's regulation requiring assignment of a state course code for every course. The most primary teacher for the section has a staff history record that has been indated before the last day of the section. Let's say you're partway through a semester and the teacher retires. Well, that teacher gets indated, but the section continues on. You need to make sure that the person that has replaced that retired teacher is listed as the primary teacher, so we have the new person. And then if that section is indated, then it'll all kind of fall out anyway. The other warning related to primary teachers are sections that have never had a primary teacher. This just means the school has not put a primary teacher in for a section. All sections do require a primary teacher, and that includes things like digital learning provider courses. We have to see the certified person that's serving as a facilitator listed as the primary teacher. So you've reviewed those extract summary warnings. You know what to do to fix them. Go on and do the click here to generate the report. It will give you the option to open or save. Always choose save. If you choose open, you're going to get a really crazy error message. Infinite Campus tends to work a little bit better in Firefox, just from what I've seen. But I think the IE issues have been resolved as well. You want to save the file to either your desktop or a lead folder. One thing I will warn you is when you save this file, it's going to put it in the exact same place that you put the last lead file. The name's going to come out of Infinite Campus the same. And it will start adding an extension to it, like a parentheses 2 or a parentheses 3. The problem is our system doesn't recognize that as a valid file name. So I recommend having like an old lead file folder or something along those lines where you can move the old files out of the way to get it so that you get just a plain no extension lead file every time you download the file. The file name should read lead underscore your three-digit district ID number, and then another underscore, a 1 or a 2 for the reporting period, and then an underscore and 16 for the school year. So make sure that that is the correct file name. It may have .xml at the end. It may not. That's really up to how your computer is set up to display extensions. Once you have downloaded the file, go to that file location and zip the file. Make sure that the file you are zipping is the actual file and not a shortcut to the file. So to zip it, you're going to right-click on it, click Send To, and Compressed Folder. So that's all of the steps that happen in Infinite Campus. So we've done all of step 1 in Infinite Campus. We're now going to log into EPSB, go to that EPSB web application, and take a look there. And we're ready to upload our report. So go to the Upload Files option. These are the directions that it's going to have on the screen. It will remind you to zip the file if you have not done so already, and then give you directions on how to browse to get to that file name. You're going to click Upload. If the file name is wrong, the lead system will throw you back an error. It may not necessarily be the right error sometimes, but it will throw you back an error. You might, if there's problems with the data inside the file, get either a big red stop sign or some other type of error message. If you get those, even though the error message may tell you what the specific error is, email EPSB lead team at ky.gov with your name, district name, and time of your error. Here's why. If you get the stop sign error, it's going to stay on screen. EPSB staff have been notified of the issue and are working to resolve it. Well, that notification is an email that goes into my IT division's mailbox, and they don't look at it unless we tell them to. So they may or may not know that there is a lead error. The other error message that you will occasionally see gives you the first error that it runs into. There may be 20 or 30 hidden underneath it. So go on and email us. We can get the file because it's gotten here in most cases. It just won't process, but we can get the file, run it through our debug system, and take a look and see what's really going on that's causing the problems. But if you don't email me, I'm not going to know to do that for you. After a successful upload, and you'll get a message on screen that says upload successful. So after a successful upload, go to the reports page. So that's really all of step 2 and the first part of step 3. Step 3 is opening and looking at your report. You want to always open the preliminary audit report for the district after a successful upload. On that preliminary audit report, there will be comments that will show you what the errors are. And we'll look at that when we look at the report itself here in just a moment. So that's what you're going to use to correct your errors. After the first upload, there's an extra step that we recommend, and that is having the schools review the staff list on the full data report. This helps identify teachers that are missing from your report so that we can make sure that we've got everybody in there that needs to be in there. And we'll look at that again as well when we look at the reports themselves here in a moment. This is what the report page looks like. You're going to have the district name at the top. I'm going to bring out a little highlighter here. The district name at the top, followed by each of the schools, the preliminary audit report for the district and then the schools, and same thing for the full data report, the district level one and the schools. You can open a report on this page at any time without re-uploading the report. So if you want to go and check on something to see what it looks like, if you need the system to recalculate something, let's say you're waiting to see if a certificate has arrived. If you want it to actually process it based on whether that certificate is here or not, you're going to want to open the district level report, the preliminary audit report. That's the one that makes it rethink. Once you open the report, the first thing that you want to look at is the file export date to make sure that you have the current file. Because of what I was talking about where it adds extensions, it's actually pretty easy to pick up an old file. It's also easy to think you've uploaded a file and it not give you that upload successful and you've got an old file still in here. And so you can tell by looking at the file date. It's going to show the date of the file that you pulled out of Infinite Campus. You want to look at the first page of each school for what we call staff warnings, and that's here in this box number 2. That is Social Security number not found in EPSB database and no courses for staff member. So those are staff warnings. And then finally, you're going to look at each teacher's individual listing, and it'll give you a list of the teachers that have errors, and it's going to say certification issue. Be aware that certification issue does not always mean there's a problem with the certificate, and we'll talk about that when we look at the error comments here in a moment. So you've looked at your report, you know what your errors are, so now we're going to make corrections. So you're going to take this report, you're going to go back to Infinite Campus and start making corrections, whether it's fixing a state course code number, whether it's making a teacher change, whatever. You're going to go back and make as many corrections as you can, and then you're going to repeat steps 1, 2, and 3, and repeat, and repeat, and repeat. You don't want to move on to the final stages of editing until you've made almost all of your corrections in Infinite Campus. Again, data quality is really what we need here. And so if you have things in Infinite Campus and you go to the online lead editor and you change a whole lot of stuff in the online lead editor, then your data doesn't match from your system to our system. And if there's ever an audit, that's going to raise a whole lot of red flags. You can do final edits, and there are a few types of edits that have to be done using the online lead application. But you don't want to go on to this until all possible corrections have been made in Infinite Campus. I'm going to show you, though, how to make an edit on our website, just so you know how to do it when the time comes. As I said, most corrections should be made in Infinite Campus. When you make a correction in Infinite Campus, you do have to regenerate the extract, re-upload it to our website for those corrections to be reflected in our system. So that's repeating steps 1 through 3 over and over. We do recommend that you pick a date, and our recommended date is October 19th for the fall and February 19th for the spring, after which you're going to only use the online edit lead data page. The reason we have this recommendation in place, and it can be before or after that date, whatever really works for you all, but we have this recommendation here because Infinite Campus is such a live, active system with things changing in it every day. You know, a student enrolls, a student disenrolls, things happen. And we don't want you to get down to the wire on your lead report and something changes at the school level and it throws things all askew. One of the biggest things that throws things off can be fall break and a semester change or a quarter change. You know, we come back from fall break and we hit the new grading period and poof, you've got all these changes. And so, you know, find a date that works for you here. It may be the last day before fall break, depending on how early your fall break is, and that's fine. So find a date that works for you. I will say you do not want to use the online edit lead data page until all of your staff warnings, those incorrect socials and no courses, have been corrected, because those have to be fixed in Infinite Campus. There's no way to fix those in the editor. Any changes that you make in the editor will be overwritten if you have to upload a new file. So let's say you've gone through, you've made a whole lot of edits, and then you realize that you forgot to correct a social security number. That's going to require a new extract out of Infinite Campus, and it's going to overwrite all of the changes that you've just done. So you want to make sure that all of those changes have been done in Infinite Campus before you switch over. This is what the edit lead data page looks like. At the top, you're going to see your district summary statistics. It will show each of the errors that you have, how many courses are impacted by that type of error. Then you see a list of your schools, the number of problems that each school has, the number of courses and assignments reported out of Infinite Campus, as well as the number of staff, and then an edit option. If you have not included a school on your lead extract, this is a really good place to find out, because this information right here is going to be blank. The course assignment and the staff information is going to be completely blank if you have neglected to include a school in the extract, either intentionally or not intentionally. You have the option of clicking the edit button here at number 2 to open up a school location, and then you can find the teachers in the drop down. The easier way that I have found to move around in this application is to use this expand arrow right here that's in the purple circle. Expand the school, and then you're going to see just the teachers for that location that have errors. This page will not show you Munis errors. It will only show errors related to your Infinite Campus data. It's going to show the last 4 digits of the social, the name, and their problem. Then you can click the view details to go to their individual edit page, which is what we have here next. At the top of that page is just basic demographic information, followed by an expandable credentials area. So if you need to see that teacher's credentials to make sure you know what certificate they have, you can expand or collapse that information there. And then a variety of tabs that you can use down here at the bottom. The course data tab, which is where you will do your edits, is the default tab, because that's where most people need to be when they're in this part of the application. We also have roles where you can change the roles information. The Munis data is loaded. Once it's here, it will show on the Munis data tab. If you need to put an edit or a comment in about the Munis data, you can do so here. You can actually view the permissions for this teacher from these tabs right here. And then finally, if something happens and you need to reassign all of this teacher's courses to another teacher, you can do that here as well. The course tab has a whole lot of things going on it that you can do. The first thing you can do is click edit for any course that is showing an error in the status column. Obviously, the ones that I have highlighted here are not showing an error just because of the way this page laid out, but you can do that. You can delete selected courses, and that's done by check marking that and then clicking the little trash can. I do not advise deleting courses in most cases. There are very, very, very few instances where you're going to want to delete something and you want to run that past me first. So make sure that you don't delete things off of this page unnecessarily. The other thing that you can do on this page is if you need to add an additional teacher, such as a collaborating special ed teacher, check mark the course, enter the additional teacher social security number up here in the box, and then click the green plus sign, and that will add that teacher to that section. So I'm going to click that edit button, and it's going to pop open a box here that has a lot of different information that I can tweak if I need to. You cannot change the course ID, and you cannot change the 6-digit KDE state code number. The KDE number has to be changed in Infinite Campus. So this is where you can make edits. The edits that are most common are grade range, or this line right here with the teaching method, the instructional setting, and the special type. This is also, oh, it went on down for me. Sorry. This is also where you can make comments. For example, one of the comments that people commonly need to put in has to do with repeating or accelerated students in a class. We allow an exception for middle grade certified teachers that are teaching 9th grade content classes, but happen to have a 10th or 11th grade student that's coming back and repeating that as a 9th grade class. We will manually override that after your sign off. I don't want you to change the grade range to show that it's all 9th graders, because it's really not. We have a manual override that we'll do. You just need to tell me in the comments here, this is a repeating student. The same exception on the flip side that we use for students that are accelerating up either into middle school from elementary or into high school from middle school. So if there's a 6th grader that's up taking high school algebra 3 or algebra 2, whatever, they can be accelerated up and we will override that, and that's fine. Once you've made your edits or your comments, you're going to click update. Be aware that this error in the status column is still going to show, because we've not yet made the system rethink it. We've just changed the data. We haven't gone through and bounced it against the teacher certification database. So once all of your corrections have been made, select the reports option. Do not upload a new file. If you upload a new file, it's going to override all of your corrections. So click the PDF icon beside the district in the preliminary audit column to view the updated report. As I said earlier, that's the one that makes our system recalculate, is the district level preliminary audit report. And then don't forget to go back and make the changes later in your student information system. So we've made all our corrections. We've got everything as clean as possible, and we're ready to submit and sign off. A couple of last minute tasks before you do that. We want you to make sure that you have each school verify the full data report for their school, if at all possible. Things they need to look for should include teachers on the first page with no courses, teachers with incorrect or missing schedules or content, teachers that are missing completely. Make sure that they've looked at all of that. The other thing that we advise is that you get a copy of this to your superintendent so that they can see if they're a copy of the preliminary report to them, so that they can see if there's any outstanding errors that they need to be made aware of. When you sign off, it indicates that you are done working with the report and that the data is accurate. Once you sign off, the data is locked down and you can no longer make any kind of changes. Please assume that any errors that are still on your report as of November 1 will be reported to KDE. Now, just kind of a glimpse into how we do this. Once districts begin to sign off in late October, we start reviewing each of those reports as they come in. And obviously it takes us a little while because there's over 170 districts and there's 2 of us that do this. But we start reviewing those reports once they come in, and we notify everybody either your report is clear or these are the outstanding issues that we see on your report. Please advise, so we can try to help you do any final cleanup. That happens from November 1st to November 14th. There's a state holiday in there, and there's also election day. So we lose some time in there too. But we've got about a 2-week time frame, and then we send our report over to KDE. Obviously, if you've left something on the report as November 1, we know that you've left it there and are aware of it. But we will still try to help you clean it up if we can. But assume that if you've left it there, it's a true error and will be reported to KDE. The deadlines for the reporting this year are November 1st and February 29th. Now, it should be noted November 1st is actually a Sunday, so you can sign off anytime that weekend, and if you need to push it to Monday the 2nd, we can work with you. So once you've made all your corrections, take one final look at your preliminary audit report. just to make sure it really shows what you think it is going to show. I have folks every year that go through, make a whole bunch of edits, and then go straight to the sign-off without looking at the report, and they have created unintentionally other errors without being aware of it. So make sure you've looked at it, your superintendent has seen it, and then you're going to select sign off and submit finally data from the top bar. Nice, lovely little lawyer legalese statement here that you're declaring that it is true and accurate data to the best of your knowledge, and that this is a legal digital signature. Do not, under any circumstance, share your user ID and password with anyone, because they could sign off on this under your name and there be errors there that you have no idea are there. So enter your user ID, password, and your full name, and click to digitally sign. And then await an email from us. Please be aware that it can take us up to a week or so after you sign off for us to get those emails sent in the fall. We do not send emails in the spring reporting period. The different types of reports, we have the preliminary audit report and the full data report, and then we have a tool for emailing those reports. The difference in the preliminary audit report and the full data report, the preliminary audit report you're going to run after every upload. The full data report you'll probably run once, maybe twice a semester. The preliminary audit report is what you use to investigate your errors, because it's only going to show those courses that have errors. The full data report has literally everything in your Infinite Campus lead extract file and everything in your PSD file reported to us on it. So that's kind of the difference in those. The full data report you'll send out to the school personnel for verification. We do recommend that with both of these reports you save a copy on disk or hard drive for so that you've got a record in case there's an audit. I know that with Title I audits, they have been using LEAD reports as some of their auditing tools. Talked about this a little bit earlier. You'll start seeing some notations that say like page 3, whatever. That's referring to the sample report that I sent you this morning. So if you want to look at that as we're talking through these next few slides, please feel free to do so. On this, page 3, item A, this is that export date, so you can see where it really is in your actual report. This is where you want to check that date. If any corrections that you think you've made are not reflected, check the date to make sure that it's the right date. That's where I'm going to go first if you tell me that, hey, I've made changes and nothing's happened. The elements of each part of the report, this is something new that I'm doing this year for both experienced and new lead coordinators. And that's kind of breaking down each of the lines that you see on the report so that you know where the information comes from and what it is. The first part that you'll see, and we'll look at it actually here in just a second when you actually look at a preliminary report, but you can flip through the sample report and see everybody has credential information at the top of their page. So in the teacher credential information, the first thing is the code, and that's going to be the 3, 4, or 5-digit code that we here at EPSB use to identify their certification. The credential, this is the name of every certificate ever held by this individual. Now, you'll notice even on the screen here, this person's got the same certificate listed 3 times. That's because they've had 3 issuances of this certificate. So it's going to list it multiple times. It's going to list it as many times as it's been renewed. Everything in this section comes from the EPSB certification database for the individual based on their social security number. The status, this is going to show you the active or expired status for every credential ever held by this teacher. As long as you see an active status, which is certificate issued, teacher intern, history, or do not print, then that teacher should be fine as far as their certificate. Every year we get people that call and say, it says that it's expired and I know I've got a valid certificate. Well, they're looking at one of the status lines here, but not some of the others. In this case, the individual actually does have a problem because all of their certificates say certificate expired as their status. If it says teacher statement of eligibility as the status, A statement of eligibility is not considered a valid credential in and of itself. It has to have been turned into a teacher internship certificate. Finally, on the credential information is the effective and expiration date for each credential. And again, this comes straight out of our database. The only time you'll see something a little strange here is you might see a future expiration date with the status of certificate expired. And that's because a teacher has resigned KTIP or has resigned from a temporary provisional program, and employment is a condition of having those certificates. The course information. First thing you have, the element is called course, and this is the course number and section number of the class from your student information system. In Infinite Campus, it comes out with a number and then an underscore and then the section number. And that comes from the course master, course tab, or section tab and section tab in Infinite Campus. The KDE number is the 6-digit state course code number required by KDE. This comes from the course master. This is something that is an area where there are frequent changes. There were over 600 changes to the state course code list last year. Should be our last major overhaul for a while, I hope. But please make sure there's a couple of reports that the schools can be running to clean that data up and make sure that they're taking a look to make sure they still have valid course numbers. The description is the district course title, and this comes from the course master or the course tab. So whatever you all choose to call the course. The content is the content that's being taught in the course, and this comes from the state course code number. The state course code number is matched up with our database here to say, okay, this is the state course code number, this is the content that's been identified to go with that number, and it matches it up for the LEAD report. If the content is saying none, that means that the 6-digit state code is no longer a valid code, or it is one that has requirements to manually populate something. That is very, very rare. So make sure that they go back and actually fix that state code if it says none. The population is the population of students enrolled in the course. Every population will appear on a separate line. This comes from the student enrollment information for each active student on the roster and then is aggregated into a list of general and special learning disability, specific learning disability, and so on. So you'll notice on here that all of these last 3 lines are section 5, but they're listed 3 times. That's because there's 3 different populations in that section. The low and high grade also comes from the student enrollment information, and it indicates the lowest and highest grade level of students that are actively enrolled in the section. If there are no students active on the roster, it's going to default to the grade range of the school, and we'll talk about what problems that can cause when we look at the error comments. Finally, the comments, and this is the error comments that I'm talking about. This is the error that is causing the record to display, or the cleared status if you're looking at the full data report. And it's based on a match in our system of the certification and the course data, or the certification and the MUNIS data. The full data report, and there's some samples on page 10 and 11 in your sample report. The full data report lists every staff member that came out of the student information system. And this does include classified staff, because what we've discovered in the past, there were teachers that were listed as support or other because they're not primary teachers, they're not the regular homeroom teachers. They still should be listed as teacher, but we wanted to make sure that they were being included in the report as well. We also know that there are times that classified staff are linked as an additional teacher to courses, and we want to make sure those courses load correctly. It does include all certification, MUNIS, and assignment information for all staff, and will show all of the courses both with cleared status and with an error status. We use the full data report, as I mentioned earlier, to verify the staff list and to distribute to schools for verification of the information before highly qualified, especially in the spring. You want to make sure that your principals have looked at this before highly qualified reporting, because let's say they get into the report and find an error, we may have to reopen your LEAD report to make that correction. Well, here's what happens. Invariably, every year, we have that one principal, and we all know we have that one principal that waits till March 28th to do their highly qualified report, with it due on March 31st. And they call you and say, I've gone through my highly qualified report and I'm missing 3 teachers. Well, we look, we figure out there's a problem with their social in Infinite Campus, which means we have to actually pull that data back out of Infinite Campus from a lead report. So I reopen your lead report and you re-upload the lead report. Well, here's the problem. That's the principal that waits till March 28th. All of your other principals were finished the first week of March with their highly qualified report. If you have to reopen your lead report and resubmit your lead report, guess what happens to all those principals that signed off on HQ? They have to go back and redo their HQ report. We try at all costs to avoid that, but it has had to happen a couple of times in the last few years. So to get the reports out to the principals for them to take a look, you go to the reports page and we have a tool for emailing. You're going to check mark the name of the report recipient. So you can check mark one, or you can check all of your principals. If the incorrect person is showing here, the district does need to update the role in KeySea. If the incorrect email address is showing here, that individual needs to log in and update that. Type in a very specific message into the box at the bottom of the screen, telling them exactly what you want them to look at. Tell them that you want to look at the full report, because they'll look at probably the preliminary if they're not told which one, and tell them what you need them to look for, such as missing teachers, incorrect assignments, incorrect content, population, grade range, etc. Put your name on it, because this is going to come from a dummy email address. Click send message, and it will send them your message along with a link to this reports page, but for their school only. So they're just going to see preliminary and full for their location. I would advise sending an email separately from your own email address, letting them know this is coming so that they know that it is a safe link to click on, and they know to check their spam folders, because sometimes these do end up in spam since it's a dummy email. You want to try to use that email tool early in the reporting period to do a staff list review, looking at comparing the EPSB name to the Student Information System name. This is going to be on page 9 of your sample report, and I'll have it on the next slide as well. I'm going to want to click over to that. Comparing the EPSB name column, which is this column right here, to the Student Information System name. Now, when you're comparing the two names, this green one and this red one right here at the top, which is example A on your sample report, that looks like just a last name change. That's not a big deal. The individual can log in and update their name in our system. However, the one at the bottom, which is example B on your printed sample report, is a serious issue, because it's 2 different people, and that usually indicates that there's a social security number issue somewhere. We actually had an instance last year where we had a father and son. Father retired, son took over, and it wasn't caught until a highly qualified report, because they had the same first name but different middle names. And so that one was a little trickier to catch. But we have had it happen where somebody enters a wrong social and it does hit somebody that happens to have the same actual certification, especially if it's an elementary certification. And so that sometimes does happen. So double check that. And then they want to look for teachers that don't have student information system data. And that's this blue box right here. You'll notice there are blanks under SIS name, employee type, and teacher number. If they check this report before Munis data comes in, it is easier to catch teachers that are missing, because this won't be here. What happens is our principals get in a hurry and they look just at the EPSB name column and they check off their staff and say, yep, everybody's there. But if there's a blank on the SIS information, that means that the individual has absolutely no data being reported out of Infinite Campus. So they're only in the report because of the Munis data. If they look at this before the Munis data, Mr. Jones and Ms. Lawson here would not be showing at all. So that's why we recommend doing this early. But if they do it late, make sure that they're looking for that blank there. Now, it is okay for it to appear just in the SIS name and not EPSB name. That's fine. That usually just means that the person is a classified person or is not attached as a primary teacher. So now we're going to take a look at the real meat and potatoes of the LEAD report, which is the preliminary audit report, and look at how to actually resolve LEAD issues using this report. The preliminary audit report shows you the summary information and then staff members that have kicked out. It's not going to have everybody from your district on it. It is only going to have the individuals that have errors. Remember, as I said earlier, kickouts do need to be resolved by November 1st, or they will likely show on the commissioner's report in mid-November that we send on November 15th. So again, you might want to refer to your sample report as I look through these items. But on page 3 of your sample report, there's a box B, and that's a file summary. That is literally just kind of a data box that says, this is what all is in the file that came out of Infinite Campus. It's going to have the school year, the district. It's going to have that file export date that we've already talked about. And then it's going to have the staff members, courses, and content areas that came out of Infinite Campus. Then it's going to have a list of all of your schools. It's going to have the school code, the grade range, the number of courses and staff members in this reported out of Infinite Campus, then the number of certification issues, and then the number of Munis issues. If you're looking at your report before we get Munis data, Munis issues will always show a 0. If your school has had any type of change in school name, grade range configuration, if you've opened a school or closed a school, carefully check the school and the grade range early on so we can make sure that we have accurate data coming over from KDE. Sometimes our syncing schedule is not up to date, and so you want to make sure that that is correct. This is another place that's going to kind of give you a red flag if you have not uploaded a school, because you will see in red here in the comments, no courses for school, no staff for school. So that will tell you that there's a problem and that that school has not been uploaded. So that's the overall information. Then you move next into the individual school information. Each school that has errors will have its own school page. And so you'll see that on page 4 of the sample report. The first thing you want to look at are the staff warnings, which is up here in box 1. And we'll talk about what each of those are here on the next slide. And then you want to review each of the teachers' listings. So this, if it says certification issue, that tells you you need to go on to the next page to look at the actual teacher certification issue. If there are no errors for a particular location, this page will not appear. So the more we get things cleaned up, the less pages our LEAD report has. And we'll start dropping schools off of your LEAD report as those errors get cleaned up. The staff warnings and how to resolve them. The first staff warning is no courses for staff member. And that means that in the Infinite Campus file that you uploaded to us, we're seeing somebody that's listed as a teacher, but they do not have courses. So you want to check the schedule and make sure that they have been assigned to a course, either as a primary teacher or as an additional teacher. And make sure that those courses are active courses within the instructional minutes and within the period that we're running the extract. If they're a collaborating special ed teacher, they have to be assigned as an additional teacher on the courses in which they're collaborating. If they're a teacher that may not have their own group of students, and I like to use the safe room as an example for this, you know, high schools and middle schools and sometimes even elementaries often have You know, they call it SAFE, in-school detention, in-school suspension, whatever your district calls those. Those courses do require a certified teacher, and we have to have them linked to a state course code so we know what they're doing. But they're not going to have kids on the roster because we would hope that there's not any students assigned to that class permanently. So you can assign them a class in Infinite Campus and put a population on the section tab so we know what that teacher is doing and that it's general ed students that will be rotating in and out of that class. For gifted teachers, reading recovery teachers, things like that, you can assign them their own course or you can assign them as a collaborating teacher. We talked about this earlier, but I want to reiterate. Make sure that the school does not change the employee type from teacher to support or other just to make this error go away. If they are someone that is teaching students at all, they do have to have an employee type of teacher and should be linked appropriately. Sometimes you have to check the district employment tab for valid entries. The one time this is an acceptable error is if the individual's assignment at that location has end dated. So school starts August 15th and September 15th, a teacher decides to retire. You assign all of those classes over to a new teacher, and then she's going to show as no courses for staff member, and that's okay. You'll just need to put that in an email to me with the name of the teacher, the reason, and the end date. If you cannot figure out why it says no courses, you've looked, there's courses in Infinite Campus, you think you've got everything scheduled right, do not leave it as an error and just kind of shrug your shoulders when I ask you about it. Go on and file a support ticket to Infinite Campus so that they can help you identify the issue. This is part of why I say tackle these errors first, because you want to make sure that you get a support ticket in and have time for them to take a look at it. The Social Security number not found in EPSB database is usually a whole lot more straightforward. It means that we don't have a match with the particular social that's in IC in our system. 99.9% of the time, it's a typo. So check the social that you have in Infinite Campus against some sort of outside documentation. I get people that'll call and say, well, the social that's on the report is right in Infinite Campus, is the same one that's in Infinite Campus. That doesn't tell if it's the right one in Infinite Campus. So check against some sort of outside documentation. If it is not accurate, fix it on the Identities tab or the Demographics tab, wherever you need to fix that. If it is accurate, look up the individual by name in Kisi to see if we do have a record for that individual. Every once in a blue moon, that means the person has not even applied for certification. They should not be in the classroom if they have no certification, by the way. But I've seen it happen. If it's a typo on our end, shoot me an email that says, hey, this person has a typo. The middle two digits should be da-da-da-da. Do not, under any circumstance, put a full Social Security number in an email to me. If you need to give me the full social for whatever reason, call me. Now, if they're a support person that has been tied to a class and they previously were not in the EPSB database, we do need to get them added to our system because that means that they are attached to courses in some way, shape, or form. Again, don't email me the full social. You can just email me and say the social that's showing on the lead report is correct, and I'll pull the lead report and add it to our system, or you can call me, either one. Staff members with these two types of errors cannot be checked for a certificate issue because we have no way to audit them. They don't have either course data or we can't match up a teacher to check their certification. So that's why we want you to address these two issues first. Get them taken care of, get them lined out and out of the way before you get any further into your report. So we've looked at the main page that shows you your district information and which schools have errors. We've looked at the school page and we know which staff warnings are there. And then we have a teacher that's listed as having a certification issue. So now we're going to go one page further into the report and we're going to look at that actual teacher's issues and their page. The teacher pages show certification information, MUNIS data, and assignment warnings for individuals that have errors. Only the courses with errors are going to show. The MUNIS information shows up kind of attached to the credential box, and it will always say insufficient certification. Then you're going to have the course information, and this is what we looked at a few minutes ago when we looked at each of those elements. So check that error comment over here on the far right side to see what your problem is, and that will give you advice on how to fix it based on the next few pages that we're going to look at. When I say that only the courses that have errors are going to show, this teacher has an expired certificate, so everything's out of whack. If you look in your sample report at the teacher on page 7, this individual is only out of field, so you'll notice there's not a lot of other populations listed. And actually, if you look at her on the full data report, which is a few pages later, she's included, and she has a whole lot of other courses that have cleared because she has some that were in field. So make sure that you understand that only the things that have errors are going to show in the preliminary audit report. Now, each of the error comments. So we're going to go through the error comments, and then we'll look at the timeline, and we will be done for the day. The error comments that you're going to see on your preliminary audit report. First is certification issue, and that's going to show up on that top page and on the school listing page. This means that there is an error with one or more of the individual's courses or with their job class code. If it's on the school page, it could mean either one. Most of the time, this comment is not indicative of a problem with the individual's actual certificate. Does not usually, although it can, but it does not usually mean that they have no valid certificate. It usually means there's a problem with how their certificate matches up with the course data. If you see the error comment holds only SOE or must submit COE, that means the only thing the teacher has is a statement of eligibility. As I mentioned earlier, a statement is not considered an active credential for teaching until they have an internship certificate. So if they're a brand new teacher, make sure that your district KTIP coordinator has filed the confirmation of employment with our KTIP office. If the teacher's already done KTIP, that means that their certificate has expired and their SOE happens to still be valid. And so they need to do something to actually get their certificate renewed. KTIP approved is a sub-comment that appears under this that can kind of help you know why is it showing only SOE. It can mean that they've just finished KTIP, but we don't have the final report yet from your district coordinator. Or it can mean that they've been approved to enter KTIP, but the internship certificate's not yet processed. This is the most common error this time of year with KTIP, other than needing to submit a COE, because it takes a few days for the teacher educator to get assigned, and there are a few types of certificates that we have to manually process here. So if you see this error sticking out on your report for more than just a few days, for about a week or so, contact me and I'll take a look in to see why it's still showing on the report. KTIP final means that the individual has recently completed KTIP and we have the final report, but processing is not complete because we're missing something. Usually that's a matter of the $35 fee to issue the professional certificate after KTIP. The error comment of specify content means that the content is currently displaying as none. It can mean that they need to assign a state course code number. It often these days means that they need to reassign the state course code number because there's an old one there. If the state code of 909999 is used on the state course on the course tab, the school does need to manually assign a content. There are a couple of other things that are identified in Infinite Campus as needing manual assignment of content. Most of them are CTE courses. But other than that, you're really not going to assign a content on the section tab. It will get ignored. I have people every year when they get that none on there because it's an invalid state course code, it's one that's been deprecated, will call and say, I've put a content on the section tab and it still says none. Well, that's because there's a state course code number there and our system ignores the section tab comment except in a few specific cases. The error comment of specify population means that there are no active students in the course, so the population is displaying as none. Sometimes it will just say out of population when this is really the issue. Couple ways to fix this. If it's a course that's going to be happening in the future, and you can, go on and assign students to the roster. The other option, which is probably the more common one here, is to assign a population on the section tab showing who is or will be or was in the course when it's active. So if the course was used at some point and all students have withdrawn, the school needs to go in, and on the section tab there's a population ID drop down. They need to manually assign a content showing who was in the class when it was active. Same thing, and we talked about this with the teachers that don't have students on the roster normally, like an in-school detention teacher. They'll need to assign students to the roster, assign the population showing who the target audience is for this class. You cannot leave the population as none. Every year I have folks that will just put a comment in that says all students withdrawn. That doesn't tell me who was in the class when it was active. So we need to know that through the population ID. Out of field is one of the most straightforward errors and also can be one of the trickiest to resolve. It means that the content for the course does not match the certification of the teacher. To fix this, you can check the state course code and make sure it is appropriate for the course. When you're checking the state course code, don't just check the title. Check the description of the state course code. KDE has put a lot of work into putting some pretty extensive descriptions in place for these courses, and want to make sure, and they're operating under the assumption that if you have selected this specific state course code, that means that what is being taught in this course matches what's on the state course code document. So make sure to look at those descriptions. If it's a class that allows you to use the section tab comment, remove that section tab comment. The other thing that sometimes has to happen with this is we have to go to the principals and say, hey, why did you assign so-and-so to a class for which they have no permissions? And oftentimes the principals will shrug their shoulders and say, well, I didn't know they couldn't teach that. Principals have access to look at the permissions. And this is where it gets a little more complicated to resolve this one. It's really easy to figure out the problem is they're a math certified teacher at the high school level and they've been assigned to teach a reading class. Math certified teachers don't have permissions to teach reading classes at the high school. So either they're going to have to move the schedule around, or they're going to have to get that math teacher an emergency certificate. So those are kind of the options to fix this. Out of population means that one or more of the populations of the students does not match the certification of the teacher. The populations are assigned based on the students on the roster, can't be changed with that population ID drop down like the population none ones can. There's an FMD student that's been mainstreamed. They do need to have a collaborating teacher listed with them. That teacher doesn't have to physically be there all the time, but we want to make sure that student's getting the appropriate supports in their course. You may need to change the special type if it's a class that is designed for like ESL students and a student happens to be dual identified as ESL and special ed. Mark it as an ESL class so we know that they're getting their special ed services elsewhere. Where we run into the most problems with this is if you see a general population showing on what is supposed to be a special ed class. Check to make sure that there are active special ed flags, locked IEPs. The students cannot have overlapping IEPs. They should not be placed in the class while they're in the referral process. KDE has made it clear that they do need to have that IEP. They need to actually be formally referred and processed and identified to be placed in a special ed class. There are times that this one is still not working right. We have some issues with Infinite Campus, so if you've checked all of that information, file a support ticket with Infinite Campus and get them to take a look at it. We have an override that you can use, but we really don't want to kick the override in until we know that Infinite Campus has taken a look at it. Because what's happened is we've given the override okay the last couple of years, and then people aren't filing support tickets, so Infinite Campus doesn't think there's a problem. So make sure that if you can't identify where that general ed population is coming from, go on and file a support ticket with IC to get them to take a look at it. Out of grade range comes from the students. If there are no students, it will default to that of the school. There is absolutely no place to edit the grade range for a section in Infinite Campus. So the only place you can do edits for the grade range is on our website. You'll edit the grade range for things like, if that, let's say that safe teacher, that in-school detention teacher is an in-school detention teacher in a K-12 school, but he only works with high school students in in-school detention. Well, because there's no students on the roster, the class has defaulted to that of the school. So you can go in and edit the grade range to say, yeah, he really only works with a low grade of 9, not a low grade of kindergarten. Same thing, we see sometimes elementary intervention classes with no students on the roster, and the elementary school happens to have preschool in it. Just edit that preschool up to say entry for kindergarten. If it is a repeating student or an accelerated student, put a comment in. If it is not a repeating student, then the school's made a problem with their scheduling and it'll need to be addressed in some other way. Incorrectly coded is only going to show up on the Edit Lead data page, and that means that either the content or the population is displaying as none, so you'll need to supply the needed information. Insufficient certification means that the computer has kind of thrown its hands up in the air and says, I know there's a problem, I just don't know what it is. This is where the computer had kind of its limitations of figuring it out. Sometimes it means that there's 2 errors. Sometimes it has to do with, how some of the certificates list certain permissions. So that's when you need to go back through each of those elements and see how they match up to the teacher certification. Insufficient certification for Munis is the only error comment that our system gives for Munis errors. It could mean that it's a wrong job class code. It could mean that the teacher doesn't have the right certification. It could mean that it's a brand new principal and we need the statement of eligibility to be submitted to activate their principal certificate. We're going to wrap up today by looking at our timeline. The first slide that I have for you on our timeline are the main big dates. These are the hard, fast dates for both reporting periods, and that is fall. We will open the report on September 1st. There is a chance that it will open sometime next week if my IT guys can get to it ahead of time. They're in the process of installing brand new printers, so I'm not sure that'll happen. But hopefully it'll open up actually next week. But officially it will be open by September 1 with the deadline to submit on Sunday, November 1st. As I said, if for some reason you need to push that to Monday, just let me know. Spring reporting period will open on January 11th and close on February 29th. With the highly qualified reporting opening from March 1st to March 31st. I am really hopeful, as I'm sure you all are as well, that we do not have another winter like we have had the last 2 years. However, if for some reason you miss extensive days due to inclement weather, like we have the last couple of years, let me know. We will gladly work with you on that February 29th deadline. Just be aware that the March 31st deadline is set in stone. And so we can't push the HQ report beyond that. So it will just shorten the window for your principals to be able to do the HQ report. Spring reporting, we will turn the sign-off feature on by January 22nd. It happens to be a hard-coded date in our system back from when we didn't open it till a little later. But it will turn on by January 22nd. And you can sign off as early as you want to on the spring report. So if you need to get it in before a big snow blast is coming, feel free to do that. Just make sure that it's, as usual, as clean as possible. In the fall, we don't turn the sign-off feature on until we start getting Munis data, which is in early October. So some pacing targets to kind of help you keep on track. We do recommend that with the system opening on September 1st, that you try to have your first upload into us no later than about September 18th. Allows you to get a good head start on it. Gives you plenty of time to look at certificates make any staffing adjustments that need to based on certificates that have not been renewed or whatever. By September 30th, you want to have all of those staff warnings resolved and have given the full data report to the school so that they can at least verify the staff list. Because we want to make sure we've got everybody in there. Ongoing all throughout September and October, you're going to have schools making corrections at the school level, depending on whether it's a school level correction or something that you're going to do, and then continue to export and upload to our site as necessary, always remembering to rerun the preliminary audit report to see your noticed updates. Sometime around October 1st is when we anticipate the Munis data beginning to come in from KDE. It says do not sign off until Munis data is in your report. We actually won't even activate it until we start to get the Munis data. So just be aware of that. By October 5th, we recommend that you try to have most of your edits completed so that then you can focus on the real true certification issues and any Munis data issues that have arrived. By October 9th, consult with your district KTIP coordinator if there are any outstanding statement of eligibility errors on the report. The KTIP deadline for the fall is October 15th. However, as in the past couple of years, we have a cap on the number of interns that can be placed into KTIP officially. Last year, we hit that cap by the end of September. And as you can imagine, it's kind of a snowball effect of that many more people didn't get in, so that many more people are priority this coming year. So make sure your KTIP coordinators are getting that information in as early as possible. If for some reason the individual does not get into KTIP, we do issue a denied to budget KTIP certificate. They just don't formally participate in KTIP during the year. And your KTIP coordinator will have guidance about how to get those denied to budget ones issued once we run out of slots. The 19th is the recommended deadline for switching over to editing online, with the deadline to submit by November 1st. The next pacing targets are for the spring. By January 25th, we recommend that you have your first upload into our system. February 5th, you want to try and have all of those staff warnings corrected and make sure that the schools have done another staff list review for any changes that may have happened since the fall. By February 10th, have most of your edits completed and double check with your KTIP coordinator to make sure that anybody that has at least 70 instructional days has been placed into KTIP. Once they have less than 70 instructional days left, they must go on an emergency. By February 15th, we give the full reports to school level administration for verification. And then we recommend that you switch over to editing online sometime around the 19th with the deadline to submit February 29th. So you get an extra day this year. Finally, HQ reporting will be open from March 1st through March 31st. Some places where you can get some help. The web application address is there on the top of this page. I will be posting a variety of resources, including this PowerPoint, the PowerPoint that we use for experienced coordinators, and the lead manual under the certification link, and then lead on our website. This is part of the public site, so anybody can access it at any time. Information about highly qualified issues is under NCLB on our website. And then finally, the contact information. To get to the lead help desk, there's the toll-free number, and then you can press 13 without having to listen all the way through the automated attendant. Or you can dial my direct line, 502-782-2133. Recommend that you use the EPSB lead team at ky.gov email address. I'm cross-training a couple of ladies this year, and I want them to see the types of questions that we get, see the types of issues. So just it helps them to learn. And if for some reason I'm out of the office, then they may be able to assist you. Login, user ID, and password, contact our help desk. So just dial the toll-free number and press 0. If you have any certification questions, you can press 11 at the automated attendant, or the direct line into our call center help desk is 502-564-5846. That gets you into the certification hunt line. This time of year, we only have 2 consultants on the phone at any time, so please be aware that you might be leaving a message and someone from our division will be returning your call later. HQ questions, HQ team, which is right now basically me, is 888, the toll-free number, and dial 13 again, or call me direct, either way. Open it up now. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to use the chat option that is at the bottom of your screen. I hope that you found Zoom easy to use and navigate around. We have really liked it so far with what we've used. So if you have any questions at this time, please feel free to pop those in. Yes, you can put me on speed dial. Most lead coordinators do have me on speed dial, and that is perfectly fine. If for some reason you all can't get through to the certification helpline, you all are always welcome to call me. If I don't know the answer, I'll run down the hall and ask the ladies down the hall. But anytime that you need to get a hold of me, or anytime you need to get a hold of our division and you're having trouble, please feel free to call me direct. I am here for you all. I will be sending out a survey about the training probably tomorrow sometime. I haven't done any this week, so I need to send all those out. And then as soon as I get my ELA numbers from KDE, I'll get those sent out as well. But I appreciate y'all joining me today. And if you have any questions, again, put me on speed dial. Get me in your email address book. I'm in the global address book, so just shout as you need me, and I look forward to working with y'all. And as new lead coordinators, I will tell you, don't be afraid to call me. There's no dumb questions. So call me anytime you need me, okay? Y'all have a great day, and thanks for joining me today.